So, Darren Murph, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine. So, you are the director of remote work at a company called GitLab. I'm wondering if you could describe the role and the mission that you've carved out for yourself.
Yeah. So GitLab is a 1,300 person software development company spread across more than 65 countries. And we have been all remote since inception. So we have no company owned offices anywhere in the world, which is a fascinating place to work. In fact, we have a lot of scholarly research on the organizational design element of our company. And as someone who has worked across the spectrum of remote for over 15 years, it has been fascinating to end up at GitLab. They are pioneering many of the best practices and ways of working that so much of the world is looking for and embracing now. So the head of remote or director of remote work role, GitLab figured out that they needed this before the COVID-19 pandemic. It's becoming a surging role. I think you'll see a lot of companies embrace this. They're realizing that this is a sea change in the way they work. You can't just add a line item to someone's job description. You have to put a lot of intentionality around remote work. So what do I do? It's a very cross-functional role. I'm essentially the remote voice in the room, the internal strategy advisor and consultant for all things remote. I work with onboarding, make sure our onboarding is top class, with our learning and development team to make sure our manager training is best in class. And also, if you know anything about GitLab, we're an open core company and we open source all of our knowledge, and that includes remote. So I'm responsible for writing, what are we up to? Over 50 guides now on how we do all things remote. And we've packaged that up into something called the Remote Playbook that we shipped out earlier this year. And to date, over 80,000 people have viewed or downloaded that, which is pretty amazing. That means GitLab's fingerprints are on the remote transitions of countless other teams and companies around the world. It's an exciting thing to be a part of.
So the question comes up is why? Why is GitLab 100% remote? Can you answer that?
Yeah, we were remote by default. The first three employees were in three different countries, so there was really no other alternative. There was an interesting moment in time after graduating Y Combinator, a startup incubator in California. The team at the time did get an office because it's the thing you do. And after about 3 days, people stopped showing up and work still got done. So we figured early on it was much better to spend that money on people and technology instead of really expensive real estate and force people to commute for hours just to do work on a computer. The founding team, they had a vision for remote being not a challenge to overcome, but a strategic and competitive advantage. And that opportunistic mindset, as opposed to the scarcity mindset, the fear-driven mindset of this has never been done before. There's no playbook for this. How are we going to do this? How are we going to prove it to people? What will investors think? Just pushed all of that aside, and you have conviction about using this as an opportunity and a point of leverage. And fast forward almost 10 years, and you have really seen that come to fruition. We're able to work more effectively, more efficiently. And we now have what I think is the world's most geographically diverse team. We have an amazing array of perspectives that's poured into our product as well as our culture, because instead of hiring great people and then forcing them to relocate and acclimate to a new area, you hire great people and let them stay in a place that matters to them, and they can pour all of that culture into their work.
Well, I want to get to that aspect a little bit later, but the one question that I wanted to ask you now is, how did you find each other? How did you find GitLab? How did GitLab find you?
This is a great question. This digs into a deep and important point, which is life is really long and everybody matters. You really never know where the connection points are going to be in your life and where the dot connectors are. They come out of nowhere. And GitLab found me through a great friend at a role I had in a past life. We had kept in touch. We did not know that we were one degree of freedom away from other people. My now manager had lunch with this person, and she said, I work at this radical place called GitLab. We don't have any offices, and we need this role, this person that can tell our story, but also help us paint the vision for what it looks like to thrive in this environment. And she said, you know what? I know this guy named Darren. You should really give this guy a call. And she did. And the rest is history. I remember getting that call and I had to sit down. I said, wait a minute, you have no offices on purpose. You're all remote on purpose. There's actually intentionality behind this. This
Yeah.
isn't an accident.
Yeah.
It blew my mind. And I knew right away that it was an environment that I wanted to be a part of. I could tell they were pioneering something really special.
You have a job that I think defies description because you're the first person I've ever encountered who's a director of remote work. There's an alchemy that's come about in creating your phenomenal role. It's part recruitment, it's part ambassador for a remote work culture. And I'm wondering what opportunities, but also challenges present in framing a remote work value proposition to prospective talent to join GitLab?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny about the role. I have actually worked with a number of leaders and companies to help them articulate their job descriptions for their director of remote work or whatever they end up calling it. Different companies are calling it different things because no one has written this before. It's being built in real time. The need for this is being invented in real time. And what's very interesting about it is there's an acute shortage of people that are tenured, that have senior level experience doing remote work, because for a long time, you're almost biased against if you were remote. Most
Mhm.
senior people acquiesced at some point and relocated to a major city. They, put their life on hold for the sake of their career. Not many people toughed it through for a really long time. So it's really interesting and wild to see that dynamic. In terms of the second question, it's been amazing to watch the recruitment process at GitLab, because what happens is when you're transparent about your strategy, when you're transparent about what it's like to work in a given place, prospective candidates can do all of that vetting before they even reach out, before they even enter into the formal recruiting pipeline. So people are able to opt in and self-select and find a culture that aligns with them. And it's baffling to me that so many companies withhold the real strategy and culture until you get in. So they spend 3, 6, 9 months recruiting you, relocating you, getting you into the office. And then by the third week, they're like, oh, surprise, this is our strategy. This is our culture. We hope you like it here. That's not doing either side a service.
Of
GitLab
course
is
not.
very transparent. And so you can read all of this stuff before you even show up. One of the first things I did add to our FAQ when I arrived at GitLab was a section that is literally entitled, What's It Like to Work at GitLab? There's a couple of paragraphs and about 4 links that I'm pretty confident if you dig into, you get a good understanding of what it's like. One of the bolded lines there is, it's not a trap to work here. There really is as much to unlearn as there is to learn. And we do things very differently. And when you tell people that up front, some people are going to run directly toward that. Some people are going to say, maybe not my cup of tea, but the world overall uh, would be benefited by companies being more transparent about who they are.